Okay, we're ready to go. I'll just read the statement. This meeting is being live streamed and will be online later on. If you're not happy with this, please leave the meeting now. Thank you very much. Okay. Welcome to you all here today to the authority meeting. To start, we'll hear any apologies. Nobody has apologized, so we met with staff members in Plaston y Bwlch. That went very well. And quite a few of us went to Harlech to see the Cynefin housing estate. We had a discussion in Tan y Bwlch following up. And we reached they had a good gave us a better understanding what they're doing. And then we went to Betws y Coed, of course. Most of you were there for the conference. Okay. So we'll move on to point 2, the corporate update from John. Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things. Maybe it's worth drawing your attention to them. As I've already mentioned, I will present this report, present a written report, to give an opportunity to read things and get back on any points or questions that you may have. So by the next authority meeting in February, this will be an item, a written item. As the Chair previously mentioned, I'd just like to thank everyone who organised it and the members who attended. I think it was the end of October, the conference. It was a very successful event, so thank you everyone for the contribution to the event for those 2 days. Just like to note that the Carneddau plan is coming to an end. I think it'll finish this month. Naomi can tell me if I'm wrong there. As someone who was part of, from the very beginning on this project with Naomi and John Roberts and a number of other staff members, it's quite a strange feeling really that it's coming to an end. Went on the bus with staff members and partners last week. There will be an event to celebrate the scheme in March. So now an opportunity to see what has work has taken part there, and I'm sure it will leave. There is a good connection now following the scheme with the communities within the area. And I think we've made new connections with partners who we didn't have before. And there's something sustainable there that we can, in this area. So there's something very positive has come out of that. But I'm very sad that it's coming to an end. Preparations are ongoing. We already had the presentation from Johan about the 75-year celebrations of the park. So Dartmoor, Petrick, Leitrim and ourselves are celebrating 75 years. So we've commissioned a piece of work on the 4 parks, and that will be produced in an event next summer. So I'll update you on that work quite soon. The Chair has already mentioned the staff members meeting. We hold it every 4 or 6 months since Plaston y Bwlch. I agree. It was a worthwhile event, and I hope that we'll continue with that. The last event, or the leadership team gave a presentation of their vision and of their work. Discussions continuing with Welsh Government on several different areas. There's a piece of work that they're conducting on governance. It's early days, but I will present you an update on that quite soon. There's a survey being conducted on the first year of the Cynllun Ffermio Bro. And once that's formalised, we will receive a report and I'll share it with you. And obviously there are discussions on the budget, of course, as well. So at the moment, things look okay from what I've heard. The things have been published formally, really, but things look quite promising. Things are moving on in a positive manner with the project, with the lottery project for Plaston y Bwlch. We're still aiming, presenting it in February. We've just had initial discussions with the lottery And if we require some more time, there is a possibility that we could present it in May. I'm not sure what we're doing at all. At the moment, we're still aiming for February, but if we need to tighten things and ensure that it's perfect, there is another opening where we can produce it in for May, but I will update you on the progress on that. The thing with work directly, maybe this is one, but it's worth referring to. So we were aware of the Egino company, a company which was set up in Trawsfynydd in order to set up the SMR that they intended for that site. As you know, that Trawsfynydd isn't on the shortlist for that, so Egino is coming to an end in March next year. I've only just heard about this quite recently. So I've agreed to meet with the director just to see what their obligations are, what it means for the site. Once again, I'll update you on that once things are formalized, or once we have more information on that. I will update you immediately. And lastly, as you are aware, be aware of the National Park Partnership. But obviously, they go out to external companies to get to try and get sponsorship for national parks. And there's been something exciting project ongoing with Helly Hansen that has been agreed upon. The details are being finalized. So we'll move from Columbia clothing that you have at the moment, as you're aware of, to Helly Hansen clothing. So just a couple of things. This will be written, as I said, next time. So we'll give an opportunity to read it and come back with questions. But I'm happy to take questions on any of the points that I've already raised. Does anybody have any questions? The Welsh Government... Oh. Small nuclear reactors in Traws and Egino. Possibly you could say, but there is a concern that funding for that has been set aside for Meirionnydd, and that will disappear now because that plan isn't going forward. I'm sure you could, but that is a real concern for Meirionnydd and for the park as well. So I do feel that it's something that we should consider, that funding has been promised for Meirionnydd during a period, and who's going to receive that funding? We are aware of that situation, that 40 million. No, there's a real... I'd like to set up a science park. Yes, we discussed that last week. But so we are in discussions with them, and hopefully we're very supportive of the principle of ensuring that we have employment, a high value employment in that area. So that's why we've asked for a meeting with the managers of the directors of Egino, just to see what the obligations are. That's shutting down, and what's the next step for that site from March onwards? And where's the funding that was promised? Where is that going? If nothing else comes to the fore, it'll be in. Okay, just a question about after the announcement with added funding for county councils. Was it just for county councils? I read the report. Was it the 4% you're referring to? I'm not sure, really. I'm not sure if Sian and anyone have had the opportunity to look at it. There was an announcement yesterday from the Local Government Association in Wales that there was extra funding. But the statement referred to council specifically. I haven't had an opportunity to see what the obligations of that is for national parks. The only information that I've received, the only thing that I heard was about county councils, but nothing for park authorities. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to public question time. I don't think that anyone's come forward with that. Declarations of interest. Does anybody like to declare an interest on any items, members or officers? No? Okay, so we'll move on to number 5. Minutes, the 10th of September 2025. Would anyone like to second that they're a correct record? Can everyone come with a show of hands, please? And point 6, matters for information arising from the minutes. Nothing? Point 7.
Before we move on, can I just say I spoke to John P. Roberts this morning. He said he's going to be a bit late to send his apologies.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, then that's
We move on to the action sheet. I usually take this item just for information. I think there would be on page 13, oh no, point 13. I've raised this with the head of finance. There's got too many things on at the moment, but that will be looked at quite soon. And the second one, 18, as I mentioned in my oral report, ongoing piece of work at the moment being conducted by Welsh Government at the moment. They've just sent a draft report. I haven't had an opportunity to go through it in detail yet. I've shared it with the other leadership team, so we'll come back to you with that once we've had an opportunity to go through it and looked at it in more detail. Possibly by the next meeting. Then we're going to have the sites on the Trawsfynydd site. I'll take this. In the annual meeting, Elfed Roberts was appointed as a representative for Trawsfynydd, but what we found out is that Elfed has decided that it'd be better for him to resign as a PAC authority representative, so that gives an opportunity for somebody else to represent the PAC on this board. Because he will be there anyway because of his area as a local councillor. So there's an opportunity to appoint a further representative to represent the PAC on the board, on the group. Just a word of warning, the next meeting is tomorrow. So we're just looking for a representative for this group. It's 2 meetings a year. I've received the name Elfed. Will you, Chair? I'd propose Delyth. I think that Delyth would be suitable for this board. Delyth Cricieth. Anyone else? Anyone else like to propose anyone? Any further names? Further nominations? No? Okay. So we have a show of hands that they approve that Delyth should be a member of the stakeholders group. Just to make sure that it's Delyth and not Delyth Lloyd. Just to make sure that it's... We move on to item 9. Report by the audit manager. Matt. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Thank you for letting me join you today. Can you hear me all? Can you hear me? Great. It's great to join you today, just to present the audit plan. My name is Matt Edwards. I'm a director with Archwilio Cymru, and Dan Price is with me as well on the screen. He's leading on the audit work. I take it that members have had the opportunity to read the plan, but I'll spend just a couple of minutes to take you the main elements. The plan sets out the information that we need to share with the national audit standards and, with the postponement that we've had since COVID, this audit plan refers to 23-24 accounts, which is in your agenda package today. The audits, they refer to the year 25-26 within the plan, so it's a bit of disconnect through the years at the moment. But we'll refer to the timeline. We continue to work with officers and the finance team to work towards pushing the work forward to present 24-25 and 25-26 accounts within the next year or 18 months. It's important that we're not trying to give. The plan refers to the material level of the budget. It will reflect on the normal ways of working. The financial matters for 23-24 are on page 20 of your plan, which is £230,000. The smaller material matters because there are areas of interest of the pay of senior managers, etc., and the levels are set out on page 20 as well. I'll just ask Dan to refer to the main risks and the other areas of emphasis that the audit and how we'll deal with them before I turn to other pages of the. Thank you, Matt. I can just start with the significant risk. I've noted that there's a risk. The risk regarding managers, which is included in each identity. In order to, we will be looking at referring. We will be reviewing any significant risks which are external to the normal business works. Other areas of emphasis, we've noted that the pension fund in the budget is because there's a high level of risk there because we've been ensuring that the information is correct and any forecasts are correct as well. Land pricing and buildings, their worth is included on the summary. This is also an element of risk. We'll be looking at reviewing at the information we receive from land prices. As we move on to the draft statement, the accounts for 22-23 weren't of the standard that we expected, so we had to do additional audit work. So we look forward to continuing to work with the team and reviewing any matters arising as they come up, which will have an impact on the timetable. Additional parties that is risky because due to the financial statements not being complete, so we were ensuring that they are complete and that they conform with the codes of local government. Also notice there's been a change in senior managers, so we'll be looking at ensuring that the relevant checks have been made and that the information had been agreed upon with evidence to back it up. Also, we noted there's a risk also confirming with corporate agreements. There were some inconsistencies with the information included on the budget statement as well. So we're looking to ensure that the relevant information is included on the statements. So that is a short summary of the risks that could arise this year and how we'll be looking to face. Just very quickly, I refer to some other elements of the plan. The authority are aware of the main elements. Turn to page 17, the timetable of the audit is set out there, and also on page 30, home performance work will be conforming on ensuring that you provide value for money and ensuring that you can maintain your sustainability. And we're completing work at the moment with the intention of sharing the draft reports with you in the new year. Fees have been set out in page 23 of your package, the breakdown estimated audit fee. That's the cost of completing the audit work, and it's important that the authority, if the fee is less than that, we will repay the difference. And if we require further time to complete the work due to the quality of the financial information we receive, there will be a higher fee, but we'll discuss that with Dewi and Sian before we move forward. The last thing I'd like to refer to is the audit team, which is on page 35 of your package. I can confirm that they are independent to the body, but there's one risk to independence there where Dan, who's on the screen, has a friend who's an officer in the authority, but we put steps in place to ensure there is no conflict of interest, possible conflict of interest, and we can manage that, and we report back to that on that in the new year. So we'd ask you to accept the reports, and that we'll report back on findings in the new year. Following the work that you've seen in place, I'll bring it to a close there, Chair. And we'll ask if we can remain with you until after the next audit, which refers to today's budget, so that it would increase our understanding as we move on with the discussions. So thank you again, and I welcome any questions. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Just maybe some explanation. From my understanding, am I correct in understanding that the accounts should be completed within a few months of the end of the financial year? And I understand that that's not the situation at the moment. Is there a timetable or a decision when we're trying to draw those back in so that they conform with the rules required? Maybe that's a question for Dewi and Sian, but Welsh Government are clear about the timetable when someone should submit an account. For 24-25, we were aiming for the end of October, but for 25-26, Welsh Government intend to pull the timetable back to end of September. We'll be discussing it with Dewi and Sian, the importance of setting a plan in place with this new timetable over maybe the next year or 18 months to bring everything together so that everything follows Welsh Government timetable as we move forward. Is it possible for us to have a performance review for, so that we can see that we're getting closer to what it should be? There's a few months after the end of the year. I accept that there is work to catch up, but it would help to have a timetable as an authority to see when they'll be in play. In item 11, is regarding the accounts for 23-24. No, it's 23-24. Because the timetable that Matt has referred to is very challenging for any public authority to bring it forward. They expect that the draft accounts are presented by the end of June, and then the audit's completed by the end of September. That's going to be very challenging for a normal body because of things which have happened the past 2 or 3 years ago. We're behind schedule, terribly behind schedule. We are, as we move forward, we are improving as we move forward. Due to the tight settling that the audit will have in place. I don't want to talk over you, but you're trying to fit in the audit, this authority's audit, into your calendar of different audits of a number of local authorities. So finding a window to conduct the audit, which is brought up, that also makes it difficult But maybe Audit Wales can't start the work until they receive the accounts from us. So we've worked with an external company. Following the comments we received, 22-23 were approved finally by the authority on the 30th of April this year. And as you can see in the draft plan, there were some corrections that needed to be done, and quite a few matters arised with regards to checking the quality of those accounts. So based on those discussions, we have used an external company to help Sian and the team to look at areas within the accounts, just to help with identifying a couple of things. Things have come to light, you know, what Sian has started on the work. Things that maybe have been there for years that needed to be sorted, you know, still are coming to the surface after a number of years. And that's happening at the moment. With regards to the timetable, 24-25 should have been, or should be audited, you know, they should have been audited by October. So once these have been audited and presented to, once they have been audited either February or April, so 23-24 were approved. So if we're talking about passing it on until April next year, we'll still be behind it. So we've got a lot of catching up work to do. The work that Graham Thornton has done to help us to prepare these draft accounts, they're all conducting further work with helping us get systems in place to get things in order. Another thing that I wanted to mention, since I was presenting these, you know, I'm saying this, I say this every time. And it's not an excuse. It's just so you can understand the context. You know, with sets of accounts here over 100 pages, you know, it's a lot of work. It's the same amount of work as it is for a full council. We've only got 3 or 4 people on the finance team here, where in a county council you've got a far bigger team conducting these. I'm sure that Gwynedd and Conwy people will say that they don't have enough staff to finish the accounts, but that's a situation we're in. We're not avoiding, you know, everybody has to prepare these and following them, and that's what we're aiming to do. I'm very happy to try and tighten up the MCLR and bring it towards you so that the performance committee can see what steps are in place to try and catch up with this. But I do feel confident that we have taken positive steps in the previous year to try and get us back on the timetable, the expected timetable. But we haven't quite achieved it yet. You know, things in place now to help us to do that. Matthew, do you want to come back in on that? Just want to assure the authority as well, Audit Wales and the General Auditor do take this seriously. And the General Auditor is going to write to the bodies who are behind schedule at the moment in the new year, just to agree upon, put a plan in place so that we can all work through, so that will probably give insurance on the timetable that we're working towards as we move forward. And the last thing I'd like to mention, again, we ran a conference last week with the local authority sector just to work through these matters, because you're not on your own. There are other bodies in a similar situation. So we are working hard with you to try and help the sector to draw things together. And we're continuing to work with you as an authority to support you and to help us as well, just to draw the work together as we move forward. Thank you. Anyone else have a question? No? We'll move on to item 10, the authority risk register. You all know the format of the form by now? There are 3 categories to the risks, which are the high risk, medium risk, and low risk. And there's a requirement that the risk register is presented to the authority at least once a year. And this is the annual. This is what the report is here now. It is an annual report as well, an update of the previous assessment.
So, paragraph 1.5, dwi'n adlewyrchu bod na...
So, point 1.5, there are 20 risks you've identified in the register. 4 of them are classed as high risks, 12 are classed as medium risk, and 4 as low risk. Following that, I've set out the new risks. So in March 25, there was a new risk to get the risk the high risk we were facing with the future of Plas Bwlch. And that has been set out as a high risk. And then in September 2025, the leadership team added a new risk, an additional risk relating to the reputational and environmental damage of being unable to comply with statutory requirements on structures and infrastructures. That is risk 20. That is currently listed as high risk. There are also increased risk. There was one in March 2025. There was a risk of a judicial review of the authority relating to the decision of the implementation of Article 4. But as you can see under the 1.14 in the table. So now the risk of a judicial review has passed, so we're looking to delete that risk from the table. We also have reduced risks. In March 2025, the reputational risk, again, the authorities' management of the Rysgwrn was reduced. And also the traffic scheme, the Green Key project risk was reduced. It still remains a medium risk. And then the Carneddau Landscape Partnership project risk, it's coming to an end. So the risk of not fulfilling the project has reduced. It's now classed as a low risk. And now we recommend that these risks are removed from the table. The resilience of the leadership team, a current review of risk register, and 3 further risks with the risk 13, 14, and 15. And in the following table, which is that's a table which updates you of what's happened since the Performance Committee. So it doesn't refer to the year in the full year, as I previously did. And the recommendation is to note the content of the report. And I'd also like to add to approve to remove the risk of 13, 14, 15 from the risk register. Thank you.
I just have a few questions in relation to this. I think there are 2 risks that we should add to the risk list that we have. First of all, the election next May. We have the potential to have a totally new government with a totally new attitude to national parks, and we need to manage that risks on behalf of all of the national parks. I'd like to see that included. Secondly, is the 4th national park in Wales that will be competing for experienced staff and money, and that is in relation to the first risk that I mentioned. And there is a risk of losing good assets because people want to have more, say, salaries in a new national park. And at the moment, we're not, but it is a real risk. And I think that we could potentially lose staff to the new national park. And I think those are risks that should be included, and they're not covered at the moment. In principle, we do have a few risks here, where you have the original risk. For example, risk number 6, where we've taken quite a few steps. The score is 9. Quite a lot of work has been taken, and the risk is still at the same level. What's the point in doing the work if the risk remains the same? I would have expected that risk to have reduced because of the work has been done. And so in principle, this is what the risk register is all about. And that is throughout really. Class remains the same. A lot of work has been done, of course, but we haven't seen the results of that. So I understand why the risk remains the same. But for example, risks number 6 should be reviewed because the risk is lower, because this shows that the risk register is something operational and live. And at the moment, it's the same score after the work has been done. But it doesn't actually demonstrate that the work has been done and it's managed properly. I'm happy to go over the other ones, but I'm happy to do that outside of this meeting. Yes, I agree with you. We'll run through the scoring. We are now considering the risk register every month in the leadership team. And I think that is something that we can check, keep in check and rescore the rest of them as well. The principle of having the original risk there and doing the work, but if the work doesn't decrease the risk, then sometimes, of course, the risk increases, but because we undertake the work, sometimes it also remains the same. Just quickly on that, there's no new two risks. I agree, but we've started planning for that already, and we can't incorporate it at this stage, but we are okay with incorporating it into the list register. Thanks for coming back on that. I was considering the election as well, and I looked back at the discussions on that we have picked up on that. I do have a couple of comments in relation to specific risks, but it may be too detailed and it would be better to have. Cybersecurity is one of them. I felt that the effects that we have noted are not quite recognizing what can happen if an incident were to occur from a financial point of view. The new risk, number 20, I think I've understood what the risk is. Is there a financial gap, or do we need to bring the capital works forward in order to deal with this? I just wanted to understand the impact really from that point of view. Risk 20, the new risk. Can I just add to that? I think you could write the risk a bit, referring, we used to call it water reserves, but it's trying to keep it as extensive as possible, risks to water reserves. It's more than that, really. Did you want to come in on that, Edward? Just so that you are aware, the infrastructure across the park is under pressure with numbers, and that the fact that the septic tanks are no longer suitable because the numbers of visitors that go to the toilets, etc. There are several sites that are being reviewed at the moment, and some of them are at the forefront, or very much at the forefront, but we're choosing not to name the individual sites because there's a risk and a challenge by naming those sites. We're working on those. We are also we've been getting legal advice as well. There's additional information that we've got as an authority in order to lessen the burden, but it's a dynamic situation because we've had warning notices for more than one place. but the water reserves are very high, and there is an action to implement things in Llanmair by July, and we've appointed a new engineering company in the meantime, so there is work being done, and myself, John, and Iwan meet on a monthly basis to ensure that we're on top of these big risks, because to our good name as well, and our reputation, and environmental risks, obviously. I know there is sensitivity about this, and I can see that there isn't a list of priority, and I accept that that's a managerial issue. The two official notices is what struck me really. Do we need to do something in regard to move budgets, or is there something that we can fill the gap with, and what can we do as an authority to fill the gap? Because it's something that should be coming back to the authority pretty regularly, not just under the risk map. It's not a budgetary issue as such. It's just getting the permissions in place, and there is a budget for it. To put it into context, there is an application in to resolve it with another organization to get permission. The application went in April. We've only just got the license in the past 2 weeks, and there is now a planning application. We started that in alignment, but we've had objection because of the effect because of the floodplain, because it reduces the capacity of that. There are several challenges to overcome, and although we've had support from Visit Wales to that, it's not being delivered. So we're depending on the reserves in property, which has been maximized, because we know that the work on the reserves is on our radar, but these are additional to that, and we need to take that into consideration when we look at that work. And can we have another oral update? I think an oral update would be better for now. For information, property, myself and Iwan give priority to these issues. Obviously, if things worsen, we'll give you an update straight away, but hopefully we'll get management over this situation pretty soon. So we could, of course, present a report to the working group. That would be welcome, yes, please. I think if we are getting a warning under the water reserves, that's a risk to life. It's not just the environment. If we get a letter because of Llanmair, it's not because of the environment. There is a risk with the actual reserve itself. So we should make it clear in front of the authority that I do understand with the second part of that, but the way it's been written, I know there's sensitivity involved with that because of sewage coming into the rivers, etc. But I think it should be clearer. I can give assurance that there isn't a direct risk to life with Llanmair. It's the siphon that needs to be amended. It's work. We need, at the moment, we need to put in a new siphon there to bring down the level of the lake. There isn't a risk for the whole reserve to miss. It's just to reduce the level of the spin gradually. So it's not just so that we are able to plan and cope with any major incident if there was a huge flow or rainfall. The reserve is resilient at the moment, and there's no risk of failure and risk to life in that context. Okay, thank you. And so we need to just look at the recommendation of that report, which is to note the content of this report and look at remove some of the risks mentioned. Proposed. Do we have a second there? Can we have a show of hands, please? Motion carried.
O, le. Oes yn ddod i siarad o. Wel, Matthew, ie. Matthew, hapus yn ddod i fewn?
No, they're just.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Reit, a ni rhifin ar ddeg, datganiad y gyfrifiad.
Moving on to item 11, note draft statement of accounts 2023-2024. Dewi, we've already touched upon these earlier. We've talked about audit trails. Like I said, this is the draft statement of accounts 2023-2024. You're all aware that it's come to an end 18 months ago now. And like I mentioned in the previous item, there are historical reasons why we as an authority are behind with the accounts. With regard to the procedure, as an authority, you need to note the content of the statements. You don't need to approve them at the moment because it's in draft form. What's required is that we, as a Chief Finance Officer, sign them, and I could see that I've done that. There is a statement in your package that I have signed to say that I am comfortable with the content of the statement. With regard to the information that's been set out, some are written in accordance with the Code of Practice standards, which permits comparing accounts across different public authorities. So you are able to, as a reader, to be able to follow them, and the information that's more useful to you has gone to the Performance and Resources Committee back in July 2024. That's when the Outturn report was published. I don't know if you can remember what was included in that report, but we have had a period of expenditure and we did get additional monies during the year. We were significantly under budget with regard to the income. And we saw quite a significant shift. And the history of that is in the narrative report, which that's on page 63 of your documents bundle. This gives you a summary of what the context of the statements of accounts are, and the actual certificate is on page 69 of your documents bundle. Like I said, these have already been passed on. As you can see, I signed them in November, and the work has been passed on to Matthew and Dan and Rachel in Audit Wales so that they can start the work of auditing these. Then we will have a final set of accounts with the ISA 260, which is the report that Audit Wales prepares, having looked at these to see if they are a fair and true reflection of the Park Authority's financial situation in 23-24. Then we will be asking the authority to approve them. I'll be asking the chair to sign that as well. And I also re-sign them at that point. And that's the situation I wanted to draw your attention to. Like I said, all of the information is in there. It's 18 months since that state of affairs, but it's a part of the governance of the authority that there's a set of accounts, a clean set of accounts is reported upon. Like I mentioned, there has been judgment in previous audit reports, and Shannon and myself have discussed this, and we've brought in an external company to note some fields of work that we could improve, to have that quality assurance with regard to what we can do. And we appreciate the work that has been done, and we do feel that it has progressed things with that company as well. And of course, the reality is on spending with an external provider, like Matt mentioned, it does mean if we didn't do that, it's more work for the auditor. Of course, we have to pay the fees of the auditor in any case. So the idea is that we are in a good situation for the auditor to be able to undertake their work more easily, and that they are able to get a report in a more positive light than the one that we got in April of this year. We've responded to that report and positively so that the authority can move forward and improve what we've got. But like I said earlier, there are limitations with regard to resources, and we can't escape from the fact that we only have a small team looking at these accounts. So I don't have much to say about the content of the statements, but if you want to ask anything on them, the next step is Matt, Dan and Rachel will start the audit. The recommendation there is to note the content of the statement of accounts. Does anybody have a question in the meantime?
Just
Happy to note the content of the report proposed by Owen. Second that. Show of hands, please, everyone. On to item 12, 2025-26 budget updates. Sean? Thank you very much. So this is the budget updates for this year. So we're back to the present time. We presented this report initially to you in September, and we presented 3 times to give you updates during the year to show you how things are going as the year progresses. So there haven't been many changes since I brought this report to you back in September. Things are quite similar. The bigger changes are the agreement with ICAS, and that's happened sooner this year, and that's reflected in the figures already. We've had discussions with the other services, but everybody seems to be working within their budget, and if there is underspend, there are things in place so that we can refer to that during the year. We're not expecting a significant change at the moment to the deficit, which is 635,000, but that's is being funded out of the reserves that we have. Part 3 refers to the capital budget, and there is no change there either. And part 4, we have a summary of any minor adaptations under the different services. Plastanna Bwlch, the spend has come down to 150,000. It is funded from the reserves, but that puts less pressure than we were expecting initially at the beginning of the year. The car parks, the target there has been achieved, and that will be put towards the deficit. We are allocating that to the assets reserve. As you can see, under 4.6, that's 128,000 at the moment, and that's good news. And we're not, with regard to interest, we're not expecting much change in that towards the end of the year. That will go against the deficit once again. Part 5, we note any major developments, and during this past period there hasn't been any environments that we need to draw your attention to as the year went on, and there may be a few changes, but at the moment there are no major changes, and the recommendation is to note the current financial situation for 25-26. Does anybody have any questions or any comments?
Thanks, Chair. Under 2, the revised revenue budget, 2.4, the expected deficit at the end of the financial year is an estimated £635,000. As noted in previous reports, this sum will be funded from the hardship reserve. So that's quite a large amount to be absorbed from the hardship fund. I just wondered how much is in this hardship fund and who funds the hardship fund reserve?
Yes, so ar ddiwedd blwyddyn ariannol 23.
At the end of 23-24, we had additional monies from the government specifically to get to grips with the financial challenge that we had during that year. So that was specifically towards funding the deficit in our budget.
So basically it's the Welsh Government doing that, yeah?
Anyone else? With that last point you made, the additional money that we had as a grant, it was our choice to allocate it. We could have spent it, but we decided to put it to one side. So that it was grant money from Welsh Government. It's not something that we're going after because we've had the money. A prudent decision wasn't made in 23-24 that we were going to put it on one side where we would have had to bridge in the future. Perhaps we decided that that's what we would do. That's bought us time in order to be able to increase income, and that's noted in the report on increasing income. In my opinion, it's a prudent way to deal with it. Okay, thank you. The recommendation is to approve the report and note the current financial situation of the authority. Does anybody propose the recommendation? Can we have a show of hands, please? Thank you very much. On to item 13.
We'll go. So we're flying through the years now. We're on 26-27. So what we're asking you now, what the recommendation is today, is for you to note the situation that we're not asking you to set a budget now. That will happen formally on the 4th of February. What I've got here is just some information for you, so that you as an authority are aware of the forecast that we've had to make and the expectations of the financial situation that we'll be facing. When it comes to set of the budget, we discuss it in detail in February, but you'll have an opportunity to discuss. It's not a long report. I'll just go through the main points. preparing a budget, we'll just turn to the table on top of page 182. What we do is really we set a budget for 3 years, an early budget. You can see what the extra income and the extra expenditure would be over the year. And the expectation following last year's budget, if that balances, and we make an income, what we have in this table, it just shows you what we look at as we set the budget. As you can see, that there is still a deficit. Explained about the use of the reserves that we've had to make. But we do expect that we'll have to use some of the hardship fund as well next year, but significantly less that we thought. Sian referred earlier to the inflation in pay award. It's good for staff to get the money in the budget, but also for us, it's good that we know earlier on so that we know beforehand. We have included contingency of 3% pay award for 26-27. We think that that's a correct level to set it, and it's consistent with local authorities have done for staff members as well. So that's around where we'd expect it to be. That's why we've done 3% pay award for staff. So they've mentioned using the hardship fund. Then with the local authority, the Welsh Government, there are 2.25-26, we noted that 3.5. In the first 2.6, we talk about the Welsh Government grant. We have forecast that there will be an increase of 2% in the grant settlement for 26-27. And it's a significant part of the authority's income. It could possibly be more, but that's the information we received for. We'd hoped that this year that we'd have received some more formal information. The local authorities have been told what their settlement is, but the national parks haven't yet. So we presented this today based on the 2%, an increase of 2% to the grant settlement. And then the levy on Cyngor Gwynedd and Cyngor Conwy is tied in to that grant, the percentage of the grant. So that has been set out in a statutory manner. We do see that there will be an increase in income due to the grant, due to the extra grant, of around 86,000 of additional income. But as you see on the table, be further funding from other grants, which we haven't included here. I mentioned before in the change in staff costs, one thing that has advantageous to us as an authority next year is the change in pension funds. The pension fund in Gwynedd is in a healthy situation, and we have a mechanism in place. The main 5 employees, the councils, the police and this authority, we have a mechanism in place where they can't increase more or decrease more than 3% when they're re-evaluated. So 3% decrease would be the most that we'd get from that mechanism, and that gives us a reduction of £127,000, which is more than makes up for the increase in staff increase and the changes that and the changes in staff structure. So there's a reduction of around £50,000 that we forecast in staff costs. So in the table on page 184. There's more detail there about the different expenditures. There are 5 specific costs here. You see an increase in insurance costs, in audit costs, and of course, Plastan y Bwlch. We forecasted an increase of £48,000 in running Plastan y Bwlch, and around £10,000 extra for health and safety budget, because we think the expenditure will increase there. So you'll see that in the second paragraph of 2.6, we do see an increase in expenditure of £114,000. The next item on the agenda of increasing income, we do see a significant increase of around £540,000. But I don't want to talk before the item which is coming up discussing this specifically. But the planning that we forecast here would give us an income of £440,000 between the car parking and the increased income target as well in the information centres. And in 2.8, the net contribution from reserves, that's been set aside for specific items. Intend to use these to finance the expenditure coming over the next year with the planning which is coming up. There is change in the table. You see there is a reduction of 1.3 million of changes to capital projects for next year. So, and it will have an impact on the net that we have to use from our hardship fund. So you see in 2.9, we do see that the variants to note are the increase in. There are 4 items that are the increase in insurance costs, health and safety budget, etc. Due to you need to recommend all these variants formally, but this is just a matter of drawing your attention to what we forecast at the moment. And this is what we would recommend as we set the budget. So we've just run through all the number of forecasts that we've looked at when we're considering setting out the budget for next year. It will be presented to you in full on the 4th of February. So we'd just like you to note the plant-based budget and ask any questions if you want further information about anything. Does anybody have any questions? Delyth? Is there any idea if we're likely, if we do get the 2% increase? Do we know? The grant, the settlement grant? I think 2% is quite conservatively. We don't know yet. Discussions are ongoing. I don't think that the budget will be formally approved until the 20th of January, but we'll receive the draft budget this month, next month possibly. So we've heard 4% for county councils, so possibly 2% is slightly low, perhaps, hopefully, for authorities. I don't want to tempt fate, but that's what we're hoping. Okay, everyone happy with that? Would anyone like to propose that we accept the report? Can we have a show of hands, please? Move on to item 14. And this one and 14 and 15 are, we'll discuss first that's addressing the financial challenge. So if we're talking about Llyn, it refers to Llyn Tegid. Thank you, Chair. This is a feed on from the report you heard from Dewi and the one following on from that. Goes into slightly more detail about how we've achieved the figures which were discussed. I won't go into too much detail on this. Some of you have heard this already in the Elwyn and Einar, you heard it last Friday in the committee meeting. So just to summarise, I'll run through it. But if you want to come in on anything, I'm happy to answer any questions. As you already know, and that's Louise referred to, We did have a deficit at the start of this financial year, just over 655,000. So obviously, it was quite a serious situation. And that is obviously due to inflation and the grants that we've received over the past few years. But I must say, we did see an increase of 5% last year. And following discussion today, we would expect a similar increase or possibly better increase next year. You can see the forecast in paragraph 4 of the assumption. If we received what we have accepted historically under inflation, the deficit would have increased to 763,000 by the start of the next financial year, 894 by 27-28, and by 28-29 it would be over 1 million. So it is a serious situation, and we need to take action. Just an obvious point, as paragraph 6 shows, we're not unique as an authority. We're not at fault of the way that it's been managed in the past. It's across the public sector. A lot of people are dealing with a similar matter. So as Dewi mentioned, we will know what the situation is by January. So if there are any changes from what you hear today, we will present those to you at the authority meeting on the 4th of February, if things change significantly. It's worth mentioning, talking about the sometimes paragraph underspending. We weren't successful this year applying for the underspend. We weren't successful, nor the other two CAPACs. But there will be possibly opportunities later on in the year to tap into any underspend, possibly. As you can see in paragraph 18, the way that we've looked at addressing the financial challenge is split into 3. First part is increase in income, non-staff efficiencies. What that means is the capital pots that we use to create projects. And the third one, obviously, is staff efficiencies, reducing the number of staff. With regards to increasing income, we've looked at the short-term things, what we can do by next year and the following year, and the mid-term efficiency. I've referred to some of these with you earlier, things that we can do with our information centres, and I can see there is a potential there, but there's still work to be done on this, so I can't confirm in the mid-term. But the short-term, paragraph 25 onwards, as you can see, the CAPAC income will draw in most of the increase here, and Edward's report will go into further detail, the report which is following after this item. But we're looking at increasing the tariffs in the CAPACs, looking at different tariff regimes, as well as using the use of automatic number plate recognition, which is called ANPR. We've started over the past few months, and we hope that it lead to a significant change in how people pay for their parking. As you can see, forecast that there will be additional CAPAC income of around 500,000 increased income per annum, which make a significant impact as we move forward. There are statutory planning things, there are changes. Much government have moved to a system where they try to there has been an increase for the next financial year, and that will increase consistently
Felly ma' hwnna'n gadarnhaol i ni.
So that's positive for us. We're not sure what the obligations of this are, so I haven't included them in the increasing income item. But we'll forecast that. We forecast for this last year, and because our income was down this year, even with the fee increase, we wouldn't achieved our income line. We need to be careful with this.
Na'n sôn am y stwff tymor canolig fel
I won't talk about the medium-term stuff. There is work ongoing with the information centres, and we are quite confident in the medium term there will be increased income streams there, but there's a lot of work to be done before we can achieve that. And in paragraph 45, we're looking at appointing a commercial manager or a similar. And the more I'm looking into this, the more I think that we do require one. There is pressure throughout the authority on this type of work. So we could take the pressure off our staff members. And in order to be ambitious, we want to do in the medium term, I think that would move us forward in a positive manner. I'm not making the recommendation here today, but I will bring you a paper on this in the very near future, hopefully. On the capital pots, paragraph 48 onwards, the non-staff efficiencies, the project funding, I'm not going to touch on that. There was potential for us to make cuts here, but those pots are so important with the work that we do and the projects that we run. And it's money which draws in hundreds of thousands of pounds as an authority. So reducing this would create a risk that we don't really need to touch upon at the moment. Dewi's already mentioned the pension, so that's good news. There are savings to be made there. I hadn't forecast those, so that's great news. We don't have many vocal posts in reality within the authority structure, so those that we have, we're not touching those. There are important posts which need to be filled. And staff redundancies, I didn't see that we needed to do it with the increase in income and the pension funds and the commercial income. That has reduced the deficit, not completely, and of course it's also dependent on what we get from Welsh Government. But I'd be pleased if you agree, of course, not to move forward with staff redundancies. So that's the situation. I'm not sure how you want to do this, Chair. There are 8 recommendations there. Do you want to go through them separately? I've referred to each one in turn. We'll ask for any questions and then we'll move on to the recommendations. Increasing income. Are we confident that we will be able to increase income? There is a plan in place where we do hold regular meetings on this. For maybe Naomi, I know you're responsible for this now, but will we achieve this? We were confident about the figure, and it could possibly be higher. It depends on the completion of the adaptations in time for the next term season. The main challenge is that there's not enough space to sell or store things in the unit. When the outdoor garments sell out, there's a delay in waiting for staff to be sent down or from Pen-y-Pass, so sometimes days pass before we can, and we lose opportunities to sell products. And the rest of the generating income comes from improving, increasing the terms with local suppliers so that there are higher margins and including a variety of produce. I think, for example, Ala wanted to include ice cream, so she could sell local ice cream Hasn't been able to happen this year, but hopefully this will all be completed by Easter. And it's essential that we complete it by Easter so that we can prove the generated income. Thank you. Anyone else like to ask a question? Please. Thank you, Chair. I know we discussed this in the working group, and the principles continue. I am very supportive with the idea of a commercial manager. That's one of the comments that I have really is about the map, the risk map. The tension between pushing staff to achieve this. So getting that resource in would be great. So I look forward to having that discussion in due course. Just a quick question about the planning fees. And I accept what John has explained, where it's there, but it hasn't been factored in at the moment. Would they expect a change in the service due to the increase? Is there a potential of I think it's an early question. I just want to try and understand what I'll turn to Kira with this. Welsh Government have increased the fees. What they want to do, that they improve the services, that there's better performance throughout. So the fees, as they were, didn't pay to provide the service. There has been a concern about what the increase of fees, what will allow us to do, enable us to do. And we are concerned really that if less applications are made or more developments go on without going through the planning process, Welsh Government have still got work to conduct on this. So we're just at the start of the journey, and we will review the situation, monitor the situation continuously. You know, as a headline, there are a lot of things to be considered, but it is a significant change, yes. And it could change the way people act. That's what struck me. There could be a reduction in the number of planning applications, and people will take more risks and try and conduct work without going through planning. I'm going back to the commercial manager question. Do not the national parks use a commercial manager? Have you received feedback of what the impact they have? Yes, I have. I've looked at a number of examples. I've looked throughout Britain, but they do have them in place in a number of authorities. They do a number of different things, but the model has worked very well in some areas. I think in the Lake District is the best example of a park which is very commercial. So I think we have to have further discussions with staff members in the lakes. But I agree with what you said. I think it could be a positive step forward for us here in Eryri. And the reason I haven't taken action so far is that we wanted to see what the settlement was from the Welsh Government, but following that, that would help us. But possibly we'll have to do it on the back burner for now, but we'll just wait to see how things pan out over the coming weeks. But hopefully I'll be able to bring you a paper if we move forward on this. Just before to move on to the recommendations, just for clarity really, supporting the in point 46, we will present a paper to members during the next 12 months, but in the recommendations, we look for other funding sources, including recruiting a commercial manager over the next 12 months. So recruiting over the next 12 months. I'll bring the paper to you. I think it will happen in less than a year. I should have changed that. Things have changed so much during the past few months. I think it will be far earlier than within the next 12 months. If you want to make it 6 months or 4 months, maybe 6 months would work for the committees. But if you're happy with that, yes, sir. I think the scoping paper within and then obviously that will
And pwynt at pryd fysa ni'n-
point to where we'd be likely to move forward to a point. If you want something more specific, I'd be, we should bring something forward to the working group and we could have I think there's a working group in January, or possibly I'll work on it in March with you as a committee. Yes, I agree with the, I think the commercial manager, the marketing manager is essentially it, so, and generating income is so important. So I'm 100% behind that. The only thing that I think, if we do raise a higher fee with planning, we need to ensure, if somebody does ask for something, need to bring greater consideration to what's included. We're selling a project, really. So, but, saying that we approve or disapprove, people expect some more included in the response. Gwyn? Tim, sorry. Just by our experience of recruiting commercial managers, it's quite different to the staff that we recruit usually. Just a word to the wise to be careful with who we get in. I've seen it working very well. I think it's great to set a target of how much income they should generate, just to ensure that they deliver. There are quite a few charlatans in this area. I think that salary will be important here, just to get the correct person in. So there's a lot to be considered. Dallas? In 67.G, the recommendation is not to delete any vacant posts. But I see that ties us really to do, sometimes there will be vacant posts and you want to change the post to be something else, to include a different job description, because we're going into a more commercial area. So that ties us really, that we have to keep the vacant post as it is, and it isn't like how it happens in the real world. That's been included due to the financial context of this year. I just wanted to give staff a clear message that we were worried about the deficit. I wanted to ensure that the authority staff knew that we weren't going in for voluntary redundancies. So this is the empty post. Oh, sorry, empty post. The vacant post. Are we going to have a vacant post doing something and keep it as it is forever, or are we going to have a vacant post that we can change and adapt to what we require as an authority? No, that in reality, I think there are 2 vacant posts at the moment. One has been filled on a part-time basis for the next year. So I think we're in where we can move forward in a positive manner on that. The other 2 posts are following a secondment, and we need to look at them. But I don't foresee that we'll need to get rid of that post. So we don't tie it. So we not tie ourselves to that job description, because the job description can change sometimes. Maybe it refers to paragraph 16, the recommendation. Specific posts, is it? Anyone else? The recommendation, because it refers to paragraph A, the £500,000, with additional car parking fees. We should postpone that the decision on this recommendation until we've taken a decision on generating income, or it possibly we will have tied ourselves to something and would cause further problems. If we postpone the decision on this one until the formal decision has been taken on the arranging the car parks, and people can return to it for a formal decision once the adaptations have taken place. Just one further comment. With paragraph 52 on pensions, just be very careful so we understand what you're saying, understand with the savings, but the messaging around it, and we present that, is essential.
Iawn, can ni symud ymlaen ŵan te i...
So we'll move on
Rhif 15, ia?
to item 15, income generation. Thank you, Chair. Page 193 on the Welsh package. Once again, as the previous report has been discussed in the working group in October, I won't go through it point by point. We'll open it to any questions and discussion just for information. Since the discussion of the working group in October,
John a finna swyddogion cymredol a
John and myself and the local wardens, and we've also been in discussions with Llangolwr and Betws y Coed, community councils and Bala, because the three areas are affected by the recommendation in the report on the ANPR systems. And following those discussions, the original intention that we discussed in October was to give half an hour in the evening for free in Llyn-Tegid, but we are aware that local people do use their leisure time and we don't want to stop that, and that's what we discussed in October. So the half hour is now an hour for free in the hours noted under 3.6. That's the main thing to note, really. Just to give you the context, Community Council in Betws y Coed raised the concern that we were not going to have an effect with vans, also camper vans, because there are several in these places overnight. But there are lots of actual sites that are closed as well, and we need to be aware of that and change and adapt as required so that we don't have a negative effect. At the moment, when you go down past the station, they've seen that there's an increase in some certain places, so we don't have to want to have that negative impact on the community. So we need to continue to report on this. And John has asked us to keep in touch and keep the comms going, and that they share any concerns that they may have and any feedback that they have. So just quickly, basically, we are intending to keep the cost of the annual parking fee at 120 per year. That is a more affordable option for somebody who uses our car parks often, and the operational hours under 3.9, that's a bit different to what was discussed. Because having seen in some sites, there are some people who come in 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning. They want to go up to the summit to see the dawn, so that we don't have an unintended consequence effect by limiting the operational hours to 6 o'clock, and they park on the side of the road because legally they're not supposed to be in the car park. We just need to be aware of that as well, and that's why we've noted the hours between 3 and 10 o'clock during the day, besides what's been noted there under 3.9 under operating hours, with the hours difference in Llangolwr in relation to parking overnight. I'm not intending to go into greater detail, but I am happy to receive your questions. Otherwise, it's to note the recommendations under number 5. Eloise?
just a couple of points really. First of all, how do our parking fees compare with other national parks? Bearing in mind the cost of living crisis, people are already struggling with everyday living costs. And nobody likes, none of us do we? I went into Spar yesterday for some prunes and they'd gone up 30p, £2.29 for a tin of prunes. So the ANPR, they're not popular, are they? Will there be any wiggle room? Say, I don't know, you've been up 10 past or whatever, you've been for a nice walk and you're slower coming down. Will there be 20 minutes to half an hour wiggle room for that? Because, you know, if you're back within 20 minutes of your limit and you've got an extra £4 to pay, you know, we don't want to be putting people off. I mean, I do understand that we've got to put up prices, but can we do it sensitively?
Yes, so ar y pwynt yna.
In relation to that point, we have discussed with other national parks. We do have discussions with them on an annual basis. I'm here. Joe, are you still working? I think maybe Louise's battery. I think it's her battery actually.
I have this effect on technology.
Joe Salamato, di'r chi'n gweithio, Joe and
Salamato, yours is working as well, isn't it? And Joe, ideal. Okay, must be the battery in the headset, I guess. It must be the battery in the headset then.
Progress system cyfieithu unwaith eto.
Just checking to see that you can hear me.
Yes.
Diolch yn fawr. I'd only gychwyn yr ateb.
So I'll just go back to the beginning of my response. We are comparing prices with other national parks across the UK. We do that on an annual basis as out of the discussions that we have as managers, asset management managers. Pembrokeshire has just gone along with a similar recommendation to adapt the charges, and the county councils have done the same. They've increased theirs as well. And when undertaking this review, it hasn't been able to happen because of COVID. So there has been a delay. And so it maybe seems like a bit of a bigger increase because we haven't been able to increase it because of inflation as well. We are not being greedy. We are not charging a major amount. We are bringing it to the same level as everybody else in the area. Like the report states, there's quite a bit of variety between the county council, ourselves, and the private ones in Llanberis. There are some that charge a fee that is much higher, especially during the day. It's not perceived that we're being greedy because we're just bringing them up to the same levels as everybody else. In regard to the second point about ANPR, it's crucially important. That's why we're calling it a trial. We're trialing it. We're not committing to bring in a heavy-handed company. We're cooperating with the ones that have been in the Cynlllechi, Porthmadog and Abersoch, and the church in Aberystwyth. Several have said that they haven't heard of the company because they haven't heard anything negative, because often they'll be in the press if they are being too heavy-handed and unreasonable. They are willing to work with us. We do adapt the project so that we can adapt how this is managed by them, so that they are not being overbearing and heavy-handed. Yes, there's a quarter of an hour for free for everybody, and they just wanted to pop to the loo, for example. So we need to be reasonable, and there's no intention. If somebody's come there, say, half an hour late to the car, they've been delayed somewhere or what have you, then we will be collecting the data in the new year to see, is this an usual pattern? That's why we haven't gone down the path of per hour in Butterscotch, so that we don't force people to rush. If we've only given people 2 hours, people are not spending time in the town. It gives people enough time to go around the shops. Most people are coming back well enough within the 4 hours. We haven't been we're taking a military attitude towards this. As we receive the data, we will be able to see if we need to adapt and change. We may need to adapt the times in the rural areas, because in the rural areas they're out for longer. If that answers your question. Thank you very much. Are you going out to communicate these changes in a positive way? Because there may be some people, visitors, community councils. It's important that we reach them in a positive way, because we need to support the car parks. We need to engage with the community councils as well. Yes, that's a really important part of it. And John has already drafted the response. We've drafted the response to Bala Town Council. Some were critical and questioning what the park contributes to the community. And John has outlined in great detail, because it is to protect jobs and the authorities' resources, because the community grants that we've drawn in via other organizations has meant that we have made a big investments in Bala, for example. And so it's really important that we actually work as ambassadors with this work. Perhaps we're not promoting this as much as we possibly can. Perhaps we will be sending them a bulletin to explain why this is happening on the basis of this report, to give or convey our story. And Ivor Glyn.
Sut ma y prisiau yma yn cymharu â
how do these prices compare with the other parks? It's just said that Pembrokeshire have just reviewed theirs, which is £8 per day, and we're charging £5. We have been having discussions with the 3 parks in Wales. In the Bana Brycheiniog, it's the same, and the recommendation is the same. And the gift and donations machines are the same as well. If we were to put a pay and display machine on our site, there is a policy that we would have an effect on relocating traffic. We don't want to have a negative effect on the community, because when a pay and display machine was mentioned, the people were very concerned, and people were going to not park in the villages, and they were creating traffic jams. And that's why we're trying to be reasonable and noting the places and sites where there are donation machines as well. The review and the increase in the fees is on the same level as the other parks. Like I said earlier, we're not being greedy, and we can't be accused of being greedy either. We've only delayed this because of the COVID circumstances, that we haven't undertaken this review and increased it more gradually. I was in a meeting in Bala, interestingly. The 2 things that came out of that was we felt that there need to be more airs sites for camper vans that would bring in income. It brings in income. There are so many of them around now. The camper vans are out there, aren't they? And the other thing was a place to charge push bike batteries. If you go down to the lake, then you can charge your bike. You could maybe go for a cup of tea, and then your bike is charged, and then you can cycle back to wherever you've been staying. Rather than being concerned, where can you charge your bike? Can you do that around the lake somewhere? Just thinking of some constructive ideas that they came up with. There is a place. I'm talking about cycling facilities to charge, not cars. Totally different things. If they want to go down on their bikes, they can charge their bike, and then they can cycle back. Rather than being concerned how much battery they have, they can go to the lake on their bikes rather than taking their cars down there. And looking at the green side of this issue, I just like the idea that was proposed by them. If I can just respond to that, that's a good idea. The only problem, or the main problem in Llyn-Tegid, is that you can't get power down to the foreshore because it floods. We have to switch the machines off. We have to remove them. The old machines have to be placed on a higher level than the flood level because we can't get electricity down there. The second is, with regard to practicality, there isn't a standard plug for the bikes. They vary. It's much easier with cars. You can just have a standard charger. And that's a challenge that we are looking at as we're looking at the active travel. In regard to airs, that's something that was raised in the town council. It's something that we've asked the town council to feedback on because it's not in our policies at the moment in review of the LDP. And we want to, it's something that we want to learn from. And they've done it in cricket, for example. It comes down to the need and having the provision there so that it's just as important as when they're able to accept these types of vehicles. We got the same types of messages in Betws-y-Coed as well. And we can use this opportunity when we're reviewing the LDP to feed back that. And when I can see in the report, there's no mention of Bennar car park here in Dyffryn and the car parking costs. I've raised this several times and I don't know who would be responsible if you were to work with the county council. During the summer, the car park in Bennar is more or less empty and they all park along the roadside verges, although there are double yellow lines. It's not monitored at all. And they park both sides of the road. If there was an emergency on the beach, the emergency services wouldn't be able to go down there because they couldn't pass the cars that are parked both sides of the road. Could you work with the county council and initiate discussions to see if there's something that you can do about that? I just couldn't see the cost noted for Bennar car park. I'm sorry, I forgot that from the list. So I'll propose an improvement to 3.4, Morfa Dyffryn or Bennar as we know it. And thank you for noting that and reminding us of it. I didn't double check the list, obviously. Yes. Thank you. Just two comments, really. There's an interest in parking fees. Obviously, this is quite a long discussion. I just want to mention the ANPR. I think I raised it in the working group. I just wanted to mention it again to make sure that I have said it properly. That it will be totally bilingual regarding the correspondence, do we check the standard of the actual Welsh language in the letters? It depends on the company that we'll be using, I guess. Can I just make sure that we are doing that? I have raised this with the company already, and it will be in the agreement that we will be checking that, because I've already checked the signs that they have in some places, because it's awkward. Of course, they have to take it back to the British Parking Association, but it's not acceptable because the grammar is not right. Sometimes when you read a few sentences, you ask yourself, what's that supposed to say? But we do insist that they comply with the authorities' Welsh language standards, and that we check the signage as well before they're actually put in place, and also the letters, because that's the problem that's arisen, that they don't communicate bilingually, but we will ensure that that's included in the agreement. Another comment was about 3.8 annual parking permits. What's the effect of the NPR on these licenses or permits? Do we have to record a specific number? At the moment, we've been quite flexible to permit it to be in relation to a certain home address, because that's what's happening with lots of holiday accommodation. But we don't see that happening as much, especially with Gwynedd Council, but it will be specific to a vehicle, one vehicle. If they want to more than one vehicle, they'd have to buy more than one permit so that they're on the list. So as a result, is there an increase in admin our end? And is it prudent for us to reconsider the fee if there is more admin? No, it won't mean more admin for us, because we'll only state the change in the wording on the form. It won't vary or increase the work, really. That was just an operational question. I'm sorry. Apologies for that. Nia, very quickly, because we've discussed the airs. They're brilliant in France. I've used several there myself, but I've had complaints from businesses that have camping sites, official camping sites, where they pay, because there are so many people paying on roadside verges and lay-bys and car parks that they acquired, and they feel that there are much less using them, and we should consider that we're not taking away business from established businesses. Just wanted to raise that point, really. It wouldn't be our intention. It's up to you to disagree with that, of course, but I don't think it's the authorities' priority to bring them on their own site. We are the planning authority. We try to promote for people to in campervans to go to formal sites. Unfortunately, in doing that, they found out that there were several sites that weren't registered properly, and then we have to be careful that we're not promoting somebody who don't meet the requirements. It is pretty complex sometimes, but we are conveying the messages and asking them to stay on listed sites or registered sites, but we only have control over our own car parks. But the Community Council raised the potential of displacement, for example, in Betws-y-Coed. That's what we want, really. We don't want people to be under the impression the current sites are open 24 hours, and that we're happy to accommodate them by putting closure site on the tickets. The message is to say that you're not supposed to stay here overnight, but if we operate somewhere and that we would move the problem to somewhere else, And there isn't just the one solution, and it's a problem for the county council as well. And so it's important to collaborate and have those conversations and learn from the heirs scheme. Haven't actually established, and Conwy is a part of the discussions to learn from those discussions and see how we can collaborate further, because we have to collaborate and share ideas to see how we can make it better and improve it. Delis? 3.11, donation machines. Do you have any feedback to say how successful they've been, or are they being ignored? On the whole, we had donation boxes historically. We needed 2 members of staff to take the money, and there was no way of checking how much money was coming in properly. All of these will take card payments, and so we won't need the staff resources. There will be a full audit trail there, but it can bring in quite a good income, really. And that's why specifically we want to target the sites where we're providing toilets. Like I've said, I've noted that the provision of toilets are increasing every year, and we're trying to help with those costs and the significant costs in relation to maintaining paths and permissive paths, where we were paying a local landowner to get the permissive paths. So we're trying to bring in a bit of income. The definite figure has not been put on that, and there won't be enforcement. But it's surprising when they see something like this, that there is provision there, that they will make a contribution. I'm not familiar with these types of machines. Do we, can I get somebody to propose the recommendation? Do we have a proposer? Can we have a show of hands, please? Thank you very much. We're going back to recommendation 14.
Paragraff 47 ydych chi wedi neud penderfyniad efo
Paragraph 67, you made the recommendation in relation to the car park, so you need to make a proposal in relation to that proposal. But a change in the wording to bring in a commercial manager. And I'm happy to propose that. Elwyn has seconded that. Can we have a show of hands, please? On to item 16. Please, can. Good morning, everybody. I think Naomi wanted to say something before me, I believe. First of all, I wanted to thank the authorities, ecologists, for preparing the report, and to say something that's pretty obvious, but the nature recovery is set out as a challenge and an ambition in every strategic grants letter and other funders, and it's obviously one of the challenges that we have as an authority, and for the years to come as well. There is so much work going on in relation to conservation, woodlands, and forestries as well. But following a meeting that we had with the Future Generations John is keen that we raise the ambitions in this field of work, and doing that is dependent on collaboration within the authority, with our partners, and within the resources that are available to us for delivering this work. This is the report that is presented to you every year, but I would like to be able to come back to you next year to report, or to look at how we report, what we report on, and the priorities. We can do that as the format of an annual report on nature recovery as an authority. And I just wanted to start with that before transferring to Rhys to give you the report. And I just wanted to thank David very much for coordinating this report and all of the team for the work that's gone into this report. Over to Rhys.
And thank you, Naomi. I'm not going to go through the report with you because it's quite a long one, and you've had quite a long stint already this morning. But it just summarises what's been happening over the past few years, the type of programs that we learn, the work that we do, and also, and it's a second hand for me, David has produced this report. I think the easiest way really is just ask you for any comments or questions that you'd like to raise, and I'll try and answer those. But I'd just like to add to what Naomi said. It's a significant piece of work for a hard-working team, and the resources are being stretched, and members of the team are also being pushed as well with regards to capacity. So that's the only thing that I'd like to say with ambition. Our ambition is the need for further resources. So if any questions or comments, I'll try and answer them. So thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments for this? Tim? Hello. Oh, Delyth was first. Just like to add to what she said there. A lot of work has gone into this, and there's a lot of information in this report. There's so many cross-referencing in it with Cynllun Eryri. And Cynllun Eryri has set a foundation for this work as well. I'd just like to ask you, Naomi, I'll get back to you. I'm pleased to hear that this will take form of an annual report. Where does it go next? Does it go on our website? Is it communicated? There's a lot of excellent work included in this report. But I found it quite hard to navigate it because there was so much good work happening in it. So where does the report go next? And maybe if you did receive a report like this, like could be on a PowerPoint form to bring it to life to us, because we can now then communicate it around the area. I agree. That's something that we'd take it back as feedback to if we agree. Because we will be meeting in the new year to discuss the way forward. And the communication is a key really, and how that can work through to the state of the pack report. We've seen the way of communication has been how it's been essential there. There's so much visual evidence with the work which is happening out in the field, and the way that some of these projects have engaged with communities and with volunteers. There's a lot of evidence that we can use to bring it to life. I think that what's difficult in this instance, that this report is being sent to Welsh Government, and they have a template and a format that they like to use in order to make it consistent across all authorities. So our hands are tied slightly with regards to how it looks. So it will be on the website as well, once it's been then sent out to Welsh Government, and it will be on the Welsh Government's website as well. That's why, David, has been included so much information on the detailed work that we do. But what we could do with the reports to make them more digestible for everyone, next year, could create a formal document that we require to report back on. But also, we could also draw up a report with the highlights and more with information which is easier to digest so that you can get a taste of the work that we carry out. Thank you. Tim, next. I just want to add to what has already been said. The amount of work in this role and how the detail included, you know, the paper and the words don't really reflect what's actually going on in the field. And the way of communicating it, yes, I understand that the Welsh Government require it like this, but communicating, get the message out with more pictures of the fantastic work which is going on and more examples in boxes would be very useful. But a fantastic job, a lot of excellent work. And I'm sure there will be even more over the coming years. What we could use, especially in the AI area, that we could put it through AI in order to produce a more digestible report that we could share then on social media, possibly, so that people can become aware of how we report back on this and they can make a note of it and the work that we achieve. And to be easier to get access to for members of the public. Thank you. Louise, do you want to come in?
Please, could I ask you a localised question, please? And I know I'll ask it in this forum is because, and with your expertise, is a number of farmers have asked me, has there been a project in the Dicynni Valley to eradicate the grey squirrels? Because this year it's been what do they call it when there's a glut of acorns? What's that word? A mast year. I mean, farmers will know there's been a huge amount of acorns, but there's not been one single squirrel in the Dicynni Valley. It's really weird.
I'd say that you're quite lucky in that case then.
Oh, well, yeah, because normally the valley is hopping with squirrels. They're darting in and out, and you can hear them in the tree canopy. And even after I asked what Iolo Williams off the telly, and he said, "Oh, that's weird. We've got plenty in Montgomeryshire." So I just wondered, has there been a project? You know those wee beasties? What are they called? It's not polecats.
Mink?
What's the other one? Pine marten.
Oh, yeah.
Has there been an experiment with pine martens? Because apparently there are pine martens in the Dicynni Valley.
Yeah. In terms of a specific grey squirrel project, not that we're aware of, we're certainly not involved in one, and I haven't heard anything on the grapevine from either of our partners that they've been undertaking any live trapping works either. We've had a couple of applications from Ffermio Bro looking at squirrel control, but unfortunately Ffermio Bro regulations mean that we can't undertake anything that will have any culling involved in it. So there are some pine marten releases in south of the park, so that would be the only other possible explanation, but I doubt they'd have an impact that fast. But it'll be one. We'll spread the word out to see what's happening on the ground.
Yeah.
Just in case
I mean,
there's
is
a
there a
localized. Yeah, or if
parasite
people
or
are picking
predator?
up diseases and so on. So yeah, we'll have a look at it.
Yeah, gosh. Thanks for that. I'd appreciate it, Rhys. Will you get back to me? Thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem.
Just step in, then you're on you.
So we just accept the report, is it?
So
So there are no specific recommendations, no? Can we have a show of hands that we accept the report? Thank you. We'll move on to 17. Implementing Audit Wales's recommendations following risk assessment, and this is Chief Exec. Thank you, Chair. Audit Wales conducted a risk assessment at the start of the year that came to an end in May, where myself have met following from this. And as you can see, the two significant items been set out in paragraph 5, the lack of arrangements for safeguarding vulnerable adults and children, and no training for officers or members in their safeguarding responsibilities. So following on from this, Iwan has led a piece of work carried out with the implement officer, and we commissioned a legal company to help us with this work. So we prepared a safeguarding policy, which is an attachment 3, and I'd like you to approve it if you're happy with that. And following on from that policy, there will be clear guidance for different departments within the authority, and there will also be training set in place over the coming weeks so that we're ready by spring and we'll be ready to go after that. So those are the main things. There was also a recommendation from the Audit Office. As you can see in paragraph 7, creating a consistent scheduled approach to reviewing corporate policies, and that has been done following that recommendation. So I think, just in brief, that's all I've got on that, because as you can see in paragraph 12, in order to manage the risk associated with absence of this policy, it should be noted that the authority have ceased to work with vulnerable adults and children until these measures have been fully approved and implemented. So the recommendation is just note the content of the Audit Wales letter included in Appendix 2, to approve, if you're happy with it, the safeguarding policy included in Appendix 3, and to note also, as I mentioned, that the detailed guidance and training on the application of safeguarding policy will take place by spring 2026, and note that there is a system for ensuring that all corporate documents and guidance are kept up to date, and that has been implemented. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Great. Just very quickly, when I read this in the first instance, it gave me a shudder. How have we reached this point? But I accept where we're at. They're very sensitive matters, and I welcome the fact that we have taken action. Just like to note as well, the only question that I had in the recommendations, which refer to training and guidance, more detailed guidance in the policy. Can I suggest that something contrary to that, that the guidance possibly is easier to understand, and that the policy is 16 pages as it is. If we put detailed guidance on top of that, it could possibly become something which isn't useful for the people who need to know how to use it. So if there is more detailed guidance, can we have something on one side of paper for everyone so that it's easy to understand? That is the intention, yes, yeah. I want everyone to understand. I want people to have a crib sheet really to say this is what we need to do. Just apart from that, it will be a requirement, quite a requirement for people to go through the policy and then read the detailed guidance, yes. One of the things I couldn't see here was, is there a section here on allegations against staff? The reference to professional abuse, but I can't see anything here with allegations against members of staff. Is that something that should be included? Can I turn to you, Niamh, with this? We have a policy, a specific policy for that, don't we? But from my understanding, there is reference to it. It would come through HR then, and then we deal with it according to any complaint against the staff member. We have a policy on that. Should it be included in this policy as well? Even if it is, I think there is reference to it. I'll just have to check. I think there is reference to that. I'm sure there is. I read it, but I didn't see it. But I read it quite quickly. But there is a process. There is a policy in place. Yes. I can't find it now, but Iwan is quite confident that it is there. I am quite confident that it is in there, but what I can do, I'll go through it just to ensure that it is there, and if it's not, it will have to be included. I'll adapt. With your approval, I will adapt the content to include that. Anyone else? Just allegations against staff. It wouldn't be the staff policy, it would be a national policy, the Welsh Government policy. It has to be included. It's not the park policy. The policy per park would include who carries it out, but the national policy is that you have to react to allegations against staff members.
Iawn?
Thank you. Anyone else?
A we fyny, so ni yr gyfeithiad
Please raise your hands if you accept the recommendation.
Meriam wedi cynnig.
Miriam has proposed and Delith has seconded. Can we have a show of hands? That has been carried. So we'll move on to item 18. And Nia is going to take us through this dignity at work policy. We did have a policy before. It was an old policy. It wasn't easy to put in. There has been an adaptation as well, the Quality Act as well. The authority has more of a responsibility now, specific responsibility. If a member of staff came across in a third party, as they saw them, we should ensure that we will have carried out necessary backward work and training and raising awareness so that people knew what the expectations were. So it was a good opportunity to update the policy. We've got into more things which have become more evident over the past 5 years. The microaggressions, for example, which are, it was just an opportunity to put an updated policy before you, and the recommendation is that we approve the dignity work policy and we can implement it across the authority. Does anybody have a question or any comments to be made? No? No one? Yeah. I think I'm very impressed with it, especially in the society we live in these days, and the things that we have recently heard about in the news, things which have happened at Christmas parties, etc. I think that everybody is set out in a formal manner, so I'm more than happy to approve this policy. I've tried to make it relevant to us in the park with specific examples so that people know what they are. Because quite obviously people can say things that they don't think. But I did include right at the bottom of the paragraph, it's important. I didn't want people to be afraid of what they say to each other, because we can be really worried about people. And especially, as you said, in Christmas parties, some people don't go because they're afraid that they'll speak out of place. So we just wanted to get a balance really of how to accept how things can impact other people. And it's, that's what's important, the impact on other people. And that's where people struggle really, because possibly something which wouldn't impact you or me would have an impact on someone else. I'd like to approve it, yes. Anyone like to second that? Can we have a show of hands, please? There we go. That has been carried. So we move on now. Members Working Group, 21st of May. 21st of May, the 3rd of September, and the 15th of October. I'd like to propose that they're correct, yes. Anyone like to second that? Can we have a show of hands, please? So we'll move on to the Standards Committee. Who's taking this? Or the minutes? The only matter that's come up in those, you'll see 306 that the chair had withdrawn, but had resigned. Sorry. We've tried to fill that post with an independent member, but we failed to do so.
felly dan ni'n y broses o...
So we're in the process of re-advertising that post.
Isio anadlu'r ddiddordeb, dan ni wedi cysylltu efo papurau bro tro yma.
So this time we've sent out to local papers because we felt that that's the type of audience possibly that would have an interest in sitting on this committee, and hopefully we'll be able to appoint in the new year. So I just wanted to give you an update, really. Everyone happy with that? So we move on to 21, to receive oral meetings of members who attended the meetings. Just very quickly, we mentioned Trust Funded site. I don't know if everybody understands what the SSG is in this stakeholders group, in fact, what the SSG is, or it's a committee between the NDA and the NRS and the community, and anyone can be a member of it. We represent the PAC here, we're local councillors, football club, anyone can join. And it's an open meeting it's a bridge between the power station and the community. I'm vice chair at the moment, after we lost Keith O'Brien, but the new chair will be elected at the start of the year. But we are concerned with what's going on at the moment. The unions are very concerned. A number of NDA and NRS staff have been offered voluntary redundancies. We're going to lose 2 or 3 people we've been used to communicating with. So it will make it, there will be a weaker link between the power station and the community. We're going to lose 2 or 3 people that we're used to talking to, which does concern us. Then the footbridge, there are no further developments on that. They're not moving anymore. And that will be put before the planning permission. There will be an application to take it down, but we're not sure. You know, that's something for the future. And there are also concerns that the SMR, which was supposed to be in Trust Funded, won't be located. That are reducing the height of the roof. We'll start down to the yellow doors. Some people would like to leave it as it is, as part of industrial heritage, but I think the local consensus is that they'd like to bring the level of the roof down, and then they'll be celebrating the NDA, the 20 years of NDA. And I'm on a steering group of the science pack in Traws. So that's an ongoing, but again, you know, it's all down to money at the end of the day. You know, I visited NSPAC in Anglesey to see what they do there. And if that type of thing came to Trust Funded, it would generate a lot of different jobs. But it's a stakeholder group. People call it the SSG, and anyone's welcome to join the group if they'd like to join. Just to give you an overview, really, of the area and what's going on there. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to say anything? No? If not, we've come to the end of the agenda. And I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we'll see you all in January. Don't leave too early, there's food here. Okay, thank you very much.